Good stuff. I just want to introduce Blake. He's one of our guys, one of the most important guys in my church. Like yourselves, we've got a real heart for those that are just doing life tough. You know, how many know what I'm talking about, right? When life gets tough, it's good to have people around you that can support you. And the Church of Jesus Christ is that. We've got a mission, and our mission is not just to do church, but actually to build churches from people that have experienced brokenness and tough things in life. So what we do, Blake is the one in charge of our work called 12 Baskets, and we move around the Gold Coast. We look after up to 200 families a week, doing food deliveries, and we love what's happening here, guys. Can I just, I want to just commend you, Matt, and all your team. Can we give these guys a hand for making this happen for you guys?
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Woo. Good stuff. All right. Hey, can you hear me in the back? Okay. Great. Good stuff. I spent my early years preaching on the corner of King George Square.
Yeah.
So we'll be right.
Woo!
Come on.
That's how I got my chops in preaching. So and then I moved on to the UK and did it there for many years. So so hopefully I'll get it back today. Hey, look, I wanna just talk to you about storms this morning, and how we all experience storms. And the thing about storms is that you have no control about storms in your life. Who knows what I'm talking about? You've experienced that. Something just happens. Everything's going all right. It's plain sailing, good weather, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, this storm comes. And you're thinking, I'm not ready for this. Or I thought life should be better than this. You know, I have a staffy, and he turned 12 years old this year. He's getting on, got a tick a couple of weeks ago. We thought we lost him. And the vet called me up. My daughter, she's autistic, and she gets really upset about these things. And she was at home. She said, Dad, I got to get him to the vet. So I said, well, you go organize that. And she was able to organize that. And she diagnosed the dog of having a tick. I didn't know. And she's worked it out. And we thought we'd lost him. And the doctor called me up. And mind you, I love this dog. I've had him since he was a pup for about 12 years now. And the doctor says it's going to cost you, I don't know, money I didn't have, basically. Mm-hmm. And I said, is it cheaper to just put him down? Now, I love my dog. Don't misunderstand me. And he said, yes, it is, but we suggest that you don't. And I said, well, let me talk to my daughter. Well, when I saw my daughter and how upset she was, I said, no, we'll find the money to save him. And I said to her, he better survive, or I'll kill him. Right? Yeah. But I love this dog, but it's got a problem. It used to jump through 6-foot walls when there's a storm. In fact, we had pool fencing everywhere, and what would happen is that this dog would literally chew through the pool fencing.
Wow.
And I was away one time preaching at another church, and I got a call from my wife, and she's upset because the dog's ripped up all his jowls from ripping all the steel. You can tell me, staffies don't feel pain if you've owned a staffy before. The problem is that he can't stand storms. So when the storms come, he gets so anxious and he gets so upset about it that he will punch through walls. He'll break whatever's in front of him, because that's the only way he understands how to manage a storm in his life. You see, it's not what's happening outside oftentimes that get us. It's not the storm on the outside, but the storm that happens on the inside of us. It's a storm in your heart that you oftentimes cannot control. And when things go wrong around your life, that's when something on the inside of us gets stirred up. There's always different pathways about storms. And the thing about Jesus, when you read the Bible and you find that Jesus dealt with storms differently to the way normal people dealt with storms. In one story in the Bible, in Matthew or Mark chapter 5, it talks about how Jesus was on a mountain praying, and he sent his disciples to go to the other side. And at that time, the ocean or the sea was completely calm. You know, it kind of looks something like this. You know, God speaks into your heart, you go into Christianity, and everything's quite smooth sailing to start with, right? And life seems to be great. So I'm a Christian now. Everything's awesome. I'm experiencing God. I've got people now that I connect with, and I've got a church now, and I'm going along, and all of a sudden, in the middle, right in the middle of you following God or committing your life to Jesus, something wrong happens. People experience loss. People experience sickness. People experience financial problems. You lose your friends, you lose family members, people that are closest to you could turn around and betray you. I'm sure some of you have been in that experience before. It's a storm in life that sometimes is so difficult to understand why it's happening, but what's even more difficult is that how do you handle that storm when you least expect it? The disciples oftentimes were faced with storms, literally storms, in the middle of the boat, in the middle of the ocean. But one thing that we recognize is that they went through all those storms and they survived every storm. Come on.
Yeah, it's good.
The reason they survived every storm is only one reason. Because Jesus was in that storm with them.
Yeah.
So what I want to tell you this morning is that it's not always how good we are in the storm. The most important thing when you go through major storms in your life is to understand and to know that God is with you. That you're not doing this alone, because it's so easy to think that no one's there. I don't know about you, but sometimes you call your friend when you're having troubles, and that's a day that they're not answering their phones. They're not returning your texts, right? I'm sure that Pastor Matt is the kind of guy that you can get a hold of 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
24/7 you can get a hold of this guy, right? Who knows what I'm talking about, right? So, but some people are just not available. Some people are just not going to be there for you. And oftentimes when you need people the most, that's when they're not available. Or sometimes when you don't have enough money, that's when all these commitments start to come in. And life can get like that. So how do you deal with that? What I find for myself is the best way to deal with some of the greatest storms in your life is to ensure that it's not even because I've got a solution for it at that time. It's to understand that God is there, no matter how tough life gets. In Christianity, for years, there's something that we've been taught, that because you're with God, everything's going to be okay. When I was a young Christian, I was taught by somebody that when you're with God, everything works out. And I think some things do work out. But life is crazy. Some things just don't work out in life for us. Yes, even for Christians. No matter how good you are, things happen in life that you expect would never happen to you. And as I have grown into Christianity, I've been a pastor now in Australia full-time for 27 years.
Wow.
27 years now I've been doing this stuff. And here's what I discovered. After 27 years of full-time ministry, God cares more about me than I ever could imagine. That's my biggest discovery.
Yeah.
Right? And part of the discovery is that I'm not as good as I thought I was. In fact, the older I get, the better I used to be. Right? So things happen in life that we can't control it. But Jesus showed the disciples that when he's in the storm, he may not do the same thing all the time in that storm, but he'll get you through it.
Yeah.
So the solution for this storm may be different to the next storm. I'll give you an example. When Jesus sent the disciples across the other side and he was praying in the mountain in the middle of the night, I think at about 3 a.m., if you read, Bible chronology, you'll find at about 3 a.m., Jesus starts to walk in the water. How many of you know that story, right? And the disciples saw him, who were scared of the storm because they thought their boat was going to sink. And they said, it's a ghost. They couldn't even recognize Jesus because they were so scared. And this is what happens when we become so anxious, when we become so fearful. In our storm, is we forget what God looks like. We forget that God is there. We forget that the presence of God is there to get us through. And when one of the disciples finally recognized there's something different about this ghost, it looks like God, and said, Jesus, if that's you, tell me to come to you. Jesus said, it is I, don't be afraid, come to me. Now I want you to understand that in the middle of the night, when it's completely dark, you see this kind of glowing figure in the middle of the storm, where there's wind and there's waves and there's noise. Can you imagine? Jesus' voice was able to cut through all that noise. And the one thing that's really, really difficult is to get the voice of reason cut through the noise that's going through in our head.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing. In order for you to recognize that God is in the storm, is you need to be able to drown out the noise of the storm around you and listen if His voice is speaking to you.